What is up, folks, and in this video we're going to analyze the mitigation that each tank has, the types of mitigation, and we're going to take that and make some conclusions and some estimates, because this is all subject to change like the other content creators from the media tour are saying, so please take it with a grain of salt. So firstly, we'll look at which tanks are most likely to be paired together. Yes, all of them can be paired together, but which ones are really, actually going to benefit from being paired together. We'll look at the ones that have somewhat the weakest cooldowns, from my opinion, and we'll look at how I think the tanking will be in terms of who will main tank, who will off tank, and what will that meta be like in the expansion based on the information provided. So I'm going to be basing this off this lovely image. It was taken from Reddit. I've put the credit in the description box. Sorry, I've got this full screen, so I can't remember the name right now, but still. This was probably taken from one of the Excel sheets from either Xeno or the ones that have been, posted in numerous areas around the website. So shout out to Xeno and shout out to the people that put this together in this format. So I'm going to use this as my discussion point. So let's start off with each tank. So you've got your Gunbreaker, Paladin, Dark Knight and Warrior, your types of mitigation here on the left, and we're going to have a look. So let's have a gander. So the first thing we're going to look at is who is most likely going to be the weakest tank. Now I'm sure you've all looked at these tooltips, so I don't need to really go over what each one does, but who most likely is going to be in the main tank slot. And when I say main tank, who do you want getting hit by the boss most of the time? Because you're also going to tank swap and whatnot, but who would you have in that position? So I've had a look at this and I've looked at the self-mitigation, self-heals, the invuls, and just my experience in general from playing the tanks that are released. I honestly believe that this is what I would class as the quote-unquote main tank slot. So I would say Warrior for sure is the main tank slot, because you've got a bit of nice AoE mitigation, but you've got Raw Intuition on the 25-second cooldown for 20%. That's pretty good. That is up quite a lot. So you would really want to have your Warrior be in the main tank slot for most of the attacks, because you can bring up that 20% quite a lot. There are certain skills between all the tanks. So for example, I wonder if I can just give me one sec. My mouse is hidden. Is there any way I can show my mouse on here? Display capture, capture cursor. Ah, cool. So you got the mouse now. Cool. So as I was saying, you will see repeat skills, and this is Square Enix basically streamlining it so that both tanks are viable in off tank and main tank, like they said in the live letter. And the way they've done that is by making a lot of the cooldowns the same. So if you look at Nebula, Sentinel and Shadow Wall, they're exactly the same skill, different icons and different animations. That's all it is. It could be a role skill, but to give the illusion that there's more skills than there is, they've done that. So you will see a lot of skills where that is the case. So if we compare that now to the Warrior not only has the 30% that these two have, but it has the reflection of damage with a potency of 55 every time you suffer an attack. So combine that with the second mitigation of Raw Intuition, reduce damage by 20% every 25 seconds unless you use Bloodbath, which is Nastron Flash, the party Bloodbath. I for sure feel as though Warrior is the one you want in front of the boss most of the time, in all honesty. Their self-heals, again, Equilibrium is a great skill. For example, if you remember A8 Savage, Equilibrium was really good for after you take Brute Justice's double punch from Home Gang and stuff like that. So your invul, again, Home Gang, one of the best invuls. The other ones, this has already been reflected by other content creators such as Xeno, but I just shadow what they say. Super Bolide is meh. Living Dead is meh. Hollow Ground and Home Gang are pretty decent in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, I feel as though main tank slot 1 will definitely be the Warrior. I feel as though most groups will take a Warrior when you look at it in this sort of context of what cooldowns everyone has. Now the second, who would you pair with the Warrior? Honestly, you can pair any three of these, but if we look realistically at what you would want to pair as a meta, and now this doesn't apply for if you just want to tank and get stuff done, which is most of the community, that's completely fine, but what would people who want to do like fast progression prefer? In my opinion, based on my experience, it's got to be between Paladin and Gun Breaker. I don't see Dark Knight being a thing purely because Dark Knight will only be a thing if the raid tier, if there is a boss in the raid tier that is magic heavy, because as I said before, they've duplicated all these skills that are all the same, like Nebula, Sentinel, Shadow Wall, but to try and get away from that, they've basically made Heart of Light and Dark Missionary the same, except this is only magic damage. So Dark Knight now has exclusivity to magic damage, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not that exclusive because this takes any type of damage by 15%. So physical, blood damage doesn't exist, but if it did, you know, any type of damage. This is only magic damage. So why would you take the Dark Knight over the Gunbreaker? Or why would you take it over the Paladin, which has even more abilities? Excuse me. So Blackest Knight seems pretty decent, especially with the like 25% of max HP when people are fully geared is going to be good. Shadow Wall is basically, again, Sentinel and Nebula. Dark Mind reduces magic invul by 20. Again, it's dark magic specific. And that's it for Dark Knight. Like, in my opinion, just my opinion, Dark Knight probably has the weakest mitigation, in all honesty, out of these three tanks. Just because it's based on magic. Which doesn't make any sense. So I don't see Dark Knight being brought to most fights if people had a choice. For like the actual raid support, why would you bring one? Unless every boss is going to be a magic boss, you wouldn't bring one. Because this also does magic damage, but it does physical as well, if you get what I mean. So I think Dark Knight is probably low tier in that regard, just my opinion. Paladin and Gunbreaker are very strong options. I believe Paladin, I would say Paladin is the strongest tank you want, not in front of the boss most of the time. Paladin will have to go in front of the boss naturally. There's always going to be tank swap mechanics. But as an off tank, you've got intervention and cover. Intervention can be buffed by obviously another ability, and cover is very game breaking in how you can use it, at least historically. Alongside that, you've got Sheltron and Sentinel to hold your own. If you tank swap, and you've got instant cast Clemency, which could be very good. In all honesty, if you throw one of these out with a Requiscat, just for prog, to help your co-tank or yourself, just for one GCD, pretty good. Hallowed Ground again, very good. So Paladin is definitely up there. Gunbreaker, again, very solid overall, 15% damage to yourself and to the party. That's mental. On a 90-second cooldown, so that's very strong. So that is also kind of like a 2-in-1, right? So that's like 15% on yourself and on the party. Single party mitigation, Heart of Stone. Again, Heart of Stone, very strong. Reduces damage by a party member or self by 15%, with the added effect of Brutal Shell if you're under the effect of it. And these two are different. They do sound similar. So this one, 90, 20. So Heart of Stone is on the 25-second cooldown, which, you know, is all not similar to, but in the similar style, I guess, to Raw Intuition. Low cooldown, decent mitigation, short amount of time. So I think Gunbreaker has a pretty solid self-mitigation too. Nebula, which is your standard camouflage. Depending on how they do parry, this could be very good or very mad. The 10% is decent to add on to stuff. You're most likely going to add 10% onto something like Reprisal. It will be used to combo into something. Certainly won't be used on its own. It's just not that strong. Brutal Shell and Aurora, again, very strong abilities in you know, self-mitigation and casting. I believe you can cast Aurora on people as well, so again, another off-tank utility ability. And then Super Belied, which, you know, I agree with Xeno on this. This is a very weak skill for what it is. So if I had to say, I would say you would want Warrior. It would be hard to imagine Warrior not being in most raid groups because it's just so still so strong. Dark Knight, very specific and specialized. I wouldn't see them unless there's a magic tier. but even then you could still argue that you would take Gunbreaker. Paladin very strong with cover and intervention. So my opinion is that you would have Warrior and Paladin, Warrior and Gunbreaker, or Gunbreaker Paladin. I see Dark Knight being the one that you won't see that much, as an opinion anyway. So what do I feel will be the best tanking meta? This isn't what you pair with each other. This is more of like, what are the best tanking practices? So it's always a good practice to tank swap, even if there isn't going to be a tank swap mechanic, because you can rotate stronger cooldowns and provoke back and then get the boss back. So that happens a lot in higher level groups. You will have a lot of provokes even before a tank swap mechanic, because you're getting more use out of both cooldowns, as opposed to say the Gunbreaker, the Warrior tanking the whole fight and the Gunbreaker not really utilizing much of this. That being said, they have made these abilities so that they can be cast on other people, not on yourself. That could be telling on if tiers are going to have that many tank swaps as well. So Gunbreaker and Paladin very flexible in that regard. Warrior also very flexible, but definitely something I see putting in front of the boss, and Dark Knight not so much. So yeah, based on this really, I would give it to Warrior overall, and then Paladin and Gunbreaker. I'm personally going to be playing this first, so it'll be quite nice to get some experience with it and to see how stuff is going. Again, all of this is subject to change. It seems everybody has their own type of home gang now, except this one does take you down to 1% health. And I'm not sure about the role skills we still have. If we still have Reprisal, that's 10%, which again can make up for these weaker cooldowns by pairing them, but it is what it is in the end of the day. So yeah, after watching some of the media tour stuff, Gunbreaker looks really good. I like the effects, I like the animations, I like the fact all the tanks have an AoE rotation now. I like how the tanks are fairly similar in how they play, but they've got added rotations into them, such as, you know, Warrior and Paladin. And we shall see what happens with Dark Knight moving forward, because it's very specific to have just the magic damage tank when other tanks can also block that damage. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of this. I will link it in the description. What do you think the meta will be? Do you think it'll be Warrior Paladin, Warrior Gunbreaker? Could I be completely wrong, and could Dark Knight be the hidden hero that we all want? So needless to say, that's all I've got on this topic in terms of what I think will be OT, MT, the tier list, the meta, and what I think the good practice will be in the expansion with tank swapping. So yeah, let me know what you guys think, and I will see you in the next one.